Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is your AstroShaman, Pernell Bobby. We are here generating an economy of harmony, leveraging human designed astrology. For those of you who watch this on replay, I just want to say thank you. Like I said, you're like the main foundation. You're the support. You might watch this 5 years later. You might watch this tonight. So I want to make sure we recognize you as well. We're live currently on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Backstage. I do have a guest who does have her own knowledge and understanding of human design. She also runs human design readings herself. So feel free, when the time comes, we'll bring her on stage. Feel free to go ahead and pick her brain and get her contacts as well in case you're looking for a reading from her. That said, bi-weekly, all right, as we get into this sun squaring Mars message, this is the sun in Pisces squaring Mars in Gemini. All right, for my people who understand in gene keys as well as human design, the sun is going to represent gate 36 today, which will be, again, a Pisces gate in the solar plexus. And this is actually defined. I'm going to briefly show you this chart so y'all can just see what we're going to talk to, what we're going to refer back and forth through. Like I said, our guest backstage, I think she might actually really enjoy this. So if I look and I scroll down here, let me see what view you all have. Okay, I'm gonna make it big. If I look and I scroll down here, just to help you understand what we're talking about, we're going to be looking at this gate 12 today. Gate 12, which is right here in the throat, is going to represent Mars and Gemini. Mars and Gemini has been there for 5 to 6 months. Most of that time has been retrograde. If you notice, this is the one of the two channels that are making a connection. A channel is this line going all the way down to the other side, and this is 22. So when we take a look at this little map over here, we see 22. This is actually going to be a 5 line, which is a highly projected line, aka being Mercury and Pisces. So you see Mercury and Pisces at the 22 is making a full channel coming into Mars and Gemini. So this is a Mars squaring Mercury energy, or a Mercury squaring Mars energy. That is also going to contribute to the sun squaring Mars. You have Mercury squaring Mars, as well as, finally, I'm going to come back to you, Neptune squaring Mars. This is a lot of energy that is squaring a lot of energies. I'm going to take a moment to bring Monica on. I'm actually really curious if I made this public on my YouTube. I did. Okay, cool. Great. So I'm going to take a moment to bring Monica in. You have those 3 planets squaring all this energy in Gemini. I'm going to help you understand a little bit more what that means. For now, let's take a moment to introduce Monica. She's going to be bringing in definitely information around the channel of 12 to 22. And here she goes. Let me see if I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Absolutely. So, hey, what's going on? How you feeling today?
Good. I'm good. I feel good. How about yourself?
I am well. I am well. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna get us both a background coming up soon. So Monica, as we get into this message, right? This is the Sun Square Mars. Uh, Beyond that, a lot of deceptive truths will come out, but there's a lot of positivity coming with this as well. And I'm gonna give you some live examples. I'm gonna play with you back and forth. You remember you talking about the cartel, and that actually plays into a little bit of this transit, which I think is funny. So we'll give that story. So with that said, Monica, what you got for us when it comes to, and let me give it this view for a moment. Bam. What you got for us when it comes to what you know in general around the solar plexus? If I can show you that chart again, the solar plexus being defined, and then the throat being defined. So now we have this motor connected to this awareness center with a motor. If I'm not mistaken, the solar plexus has a motor as well, too, no?
The solar plex has a motor. The throat does not.
The throat is not a motor. The throat is the awareness center. Excuse me. Thank you. And it has to connect to the motor in order to fully take action and on the
Use
thoughts.
their voice all the time. Yes.
Say it again.
For them to be able to use their voice, like to initiate. Yes, it needs to be
Boom.
connected to a motor. Which in this case on that chart, it's in the solar plexus.
So, just to help understand this energy from the beginning, we have 2 defined centers: the throat, which is one of the awareness centers, and then you have the solar plexus, right? Which is another motor with an awareness.
Yep.
On emotional awareness, to be even more precise, can you help us understand these 2 as individuals? The
Yep.
throat as a defined center and the solar plexus as a defined center. The solar plexus, for those of y'all watching, is going to be a lot of the Pisces energy, straight up. Mercury in Pisces, the Sun in Pisces, and Neptune in Pisces. And the throat that we're connected to is defined is going to be Gemini, Mars and Gemini precisely. But separate from astrology, can you just explain to us what those centers defined
Yeah.
look like?
So if you have a defined solar plexus, then that means that you have an emotional center. So you may have other motors that are defined in the chart, but the emotional center, if it's defined, that trumps all the other motors, right? Or this is your decision process. So when anyone that define solar plexus has an emotional system, they are considered an emotional being, and so when they make their decisions come by way of an emotional wave. And so the easiest way for me to explain that is if someone comes with you with a question about do you want to do something in that moment, nothing is real for you. You shouldn't make that decision. It's a big decision. You should not make that in the moment, because more than likely it's going to be the wrong decision. Based because you're going to go off based off of how you feel right now. Do is ride out your emotional wave. So wait until you have an even keel and you're not feeling on a high, or you're feeling on a low. You're kind of even keel, and when someone asks you that question again, because it's going to asking that question
Mm-hmm.
wave, and you're at even keel, then only then after the wave has gone through its process can you answer that question and make that decision best for you. That goes along with and that's your strategy and your authority. So the strategy is to respond. You wait for something to come to you, in a sense, and you respond once you go through your full emotional wave. So that's the best way for me.
Absolutely.
And then you said the throat center, right?
For sure. For sure. So before we go into the throat, let's cover in the solar plexus. Let's cover the solar plexus before we go into the throat so we can see, how might that emotional center, which has priority over basically all the other motors, let's see how these energies work in there in these shadow frequencies, these gift frequencies, and beyond. So I got this little chart here, right? On the, let me make sure, on the far right, this is going to be all the shadows. In the middle categories, you see lightness, leadership, preservation, mindfulness. In the middle categories is going to be our gifts. And then you have the acidic frequency right here. And this is, just so you know, lining up, left is going to be shadow frequency. You see it literally in gray. Addiction, construction, pride. And we're going to take a moment to stop at pride because that's one of them we're going to talk about today. All right. This gate 26, as I zoom out, gate 26 is one of them. This is going to be representing the moon in Sagittarius today. I understand transits move, but to cover where Monica was at, we're looking at this one right here. This is the sun. This is the sun. And the shadow frequency of Pisces right now in this gate 36 is going to be turbulence. As we dig deeper in, I'm going to help you understand what turbulence really means. But a lot of this is about emotional turbulence. How do we deal with our emotions? And when we're acting, especially emotionally at an unconscious level, when we're just allowing our emotions to influence and impact others and not even remotely considering, humanity, which is this center, not even remotely considering the next person, as well as understanding that you're not the only one suffering. So we just sit there and allow our turbulence in certain fashions, and we're going to dig deeper into this later, to just emotions just whiplash any and everywhere versus kind of stepping into this compassion. So I just want to let y'all know this is one of the gates off the rip that are active in Pisces in the sun. Separate from that, we're going to have this that we're going to talk about, which is gate 22 today. And this is more Mercury in Pisces. So it's our mind and our intelligence and our just the ability to perceive information. When you put in a water sign, this information is already unseen. You're going to be able to perceive enemies that are hidden, that have been hidden in plain sight. And how have we, in a sense, dishonored our own emotional wave, which she just talked about, not allowing us to get into these higher frequencies, which are not about higher and lower, but just into these frequencies of grace. So these are the two main ones. As one to try to kind of dip and understand that briefly as we dip into Monica explaining another defined center, which is going to be the throat and awareness center. So please.
Right. And I want to go back to what you just showed. I don't understand like fully like the intertwine of the astrology with the human design. So I'm not sure. I have a question as to where you got those.
Please.
because I know like with human design, it's very mechanical, and so it's the words that were jumping out are definitely different from what I'm
1000%. So that specifically was Gene Keys. It was that
okay.
particular outlet of human
Okay, so
design.
yeah, make sure you say that because okay, so Jinkies, I got you because I was just like, good, I'm not understanding. Okay, cool. Let's move on. The throat. So with the throat being defined, what it means is that you are here to use your voice. You in a certain type of way, depending on what gates and what channels. In this case, if you have a defined throat, you definitely have a it's connected to another center. It can be any of the centers, and you're here to use your voice. If it's not connected to a motor, then you have to be you can't initiate in the sense you're not a manifester or a manifesting generator. If your throat is not defined, then you typically need to be more cautious of what you say. A lot of times when they come into contact, someone who does not have a defined center in their throat comes in contact with someone who does have a defined center. They tend to just throw up words all over the place because they finally now have somebody who gives that openness. Or it's defined to where they can talk. So there's a lot of different things with the you can do it, but in this case, with the throat being defined, it is attached to a motor. So you are here, you're either a generator or you are a manifester because you have your throat center defined to a motor in this case. And that yeah, because the channel is it. Wait, hold on. Is it which one is here? It's the 12. Yep, the 12 and the 22. Yeah, which
Beautiful.
yeah. So you can initiate as a manifester, and as a manifesting generator, you have to still wait to respond to something, and then you can initiate. Is the way it works.
No, 1000%. And generators themselves, they don't have throats connected to any motors.
No.
Exactly. So no, thank you for that breakdown. Just helping us understand it from again the mechanical standpoint. And what's beautiful about this combo right now is like being able to basically merge the mechanical and in a sense the biological, and then on another step. And when I say biological, I'm actually talking gene keys in this particular. Literally, it says gene keys. It's our DNA strands, right? And how we as humans are operating at that hormonal level, and then really that overarching scale, let's just say, of astrology, which is now being able to pour the spirit into the body, pour the spirit into the mechanism. And it's like, hey, like pour the soul of how you're going to play out this archetypical life. So when we look at this from a transit standpoint, there's a lot of things that this looks like. Okay, so one of the things that turbulence looks like on the 36th gate, which I was talking to you before about, it's in the solar plexus, it's Pisces gate, is turbulence. And one of the ways that turbulence is maintained as well as exacerbated and how it looks is with the sun in Pisces, we're going to become aware of propaganda. Now, this is a major one. This is when I come back to Monica. Propaganda is one of the ways that turbulence is used to create an emotional reaction, an emotional fear, where now we see certain news on the media. Monica's going to give me an example soon. And we then collectively start panicking. Now, 2020, we all know the event. 2020 is a prime example of this. This energy is almost a repeat in a different way. Back October last year, 2022, what was happening? You see Twitter doing its thing and merging with Elon Musk. And there's a lot of confusion, a lot of commotion. I'm going to lose my blue check. I need to pay for it or not. And you have a lot of people changing their mind. Now you have the Kanye West event, for an example. And it's like, you don't even see him in the news today. Maybe you do. I don't know what your search bar looking like, but he was all over my feeds, and then now he's not at all. And it's like, what are these scandals? What's going on? You got Balenciaga this. It's turbulence in the 36th gate with the sun in Pisces. Now we're seeing the turbulence and the deception very clearly. very clearly. And this was happening throughout basically our lives, and especially with more modern time and media. Media is the turbulence that you saw earlier. That's the shadow of the sun right now in this gate. It is essentially creating an emotional disturbance. It's exciting fear within us that is charged by emotions. And from that, with this connection to the 12th gate in Gemini, it is now allowing us to, as individuals, impact the social collective, creating more turbulence. So it would be me, for example, right now, if I decided to come on here and spread a message of chaos, to spread a message of turbulence, because this is connected, I might be just emotionally charged in the moment. Let's say I don't wait to make this decision and have this live. Because it's connected, I can now come on here and become an agent of chaos, verbally voicing my opinions, my thoughts. Not that it's reality. And this is what's important to like. And again, reality is just always this complex, complicated word, right? Like it's very individual. Like, you know, my reality and her reality are completely different. But I wanted to kind of just, you know, paint and highlight how at the lower frequencies of this, first off, when I say lower frequencies and shadow frequencies, it is not bad. This is something to understand. There's no good and bad in these moments. Turbulence is the same exact thing that is allowing us at a collective and unconscious level to become conscious of certain deceptions, certain stories, certain narratives that are run in order to essentially program us at the astral body plane. And when I say astral body, I'm talking the emotional level. So dreams, we all know Pisces, one of the houses, 12th house for dreams. And it's like through our dreams right now, you're going to find the chaos that is in your waking life. This is one way that it can show up. And we're going to be able to start aligning our actions and our irritable thoughts to help reveal what's the turbulence, what's the chaos.
And it's,
Now, again, this say it again. Say, hit me.
is this unconscious turbulence that's
This
gonna
this is this
get
is
in the world?
collectively unconscious. This is the
Collect.
world.
Oh, it's not.
This is
It's
the world.
collective. Okay.
No, it's not. It's not individually hitting us. But the irony is that's where Gate 36 is coming in. The irony is Gate 12 is now an individual, or Gemini. I'm just going to say Gemini in a moment. Gemini is an individual thinker.
Mm-hmm.
Gemini is an individual thinker. So what it's saying is well, what is your power or my power as an individual, and how we talk, think, and take action that affects the collective unconscious. So I could just be a simple individual journalist and write an article.
So what this means for me, so I'll speak on the 36th gate, is the gate of crisis, right? And so anyone who has that actual gate is considered like a manager. Like they do well with crisis. I have a friend who actually has 35, 36 channel, and like they do well with crisis and managing things. The shadow side of 35 is always being in a crisis, always, from here, left to right, and so there has to be a balance with it, right? And so I know you said with I heard you say individual, channel 22 being individual. So there's circuitry in human design, and so channel 12 to channel 22 is actually an individual channel. And so a person who actually has this channel is here to use their voice in a sense to kind of shake things up. So they have to be aware of what they say. Whether conscious or unconscious, it needs to be their self. They don't need to try and align with what society says is right or not. They're here to bring forth their voice for change, pretty much in a sense. And so this speaks this speaks to what's going on right now. But specifically with this channel, they have a way of getting people's attention just by the way that they convey things. I have a lot of people in my life who actually have this channel, and it comes by way of creativity. A lot of times these people they can sing, or they're great at like acting or things like that, but they command attention, and when they speak, it's taken in. So they have to be aware of what they say, because they have the thing is mutation is their gift. And so what they say goes out to the public, and then the public takes it in, and they go out and go about and saying it to other people. So going back to what you're saying as far as what's going on and crisis and just everything, this channel definitely represents that. It's very cool to hear you talk about what's happening on the astrology side of things and just the energy, and then tie it back to human design. That's really dope.
Yeah. This is exciting. I'm super excited. Like, this is definitely gonna get deep today because, like I said, this is the beauty of. First off, I'm familiar with collective circuitry and like individual circuitry, but I'm not entirely familiar with which ones are which. So I just love to see the synchronicity because I was not entirely positive that the 1222 was in the individual circuit. I just knew Gemini was. Right now, and what you spoke to was so critical. Tell us the story that you heard in the news from the U.S. and I'm living here in Mexico. So I want to give that as background. Tell the story you heard from the U.S. while I live here in Mexico.
So, unfortunately, for you that may not be aware, unfortunately, there were 4 Americans that were kidnapped. They were going to have one of the people who was kidnapped was going to Mexico from the United States to have a medical procedure, and in them trying to go and do that, the cartel kidnapped them and actually killed 2 of the people, and the other 2 were actually found alive. Now, the story that I got was originally was that, hey, this is what happened. The cartel, killed 2 people, and 2 people they found alive, but they didn't have any much information. So fast forward to the next day, it comes out that the cartel has actually apologized for what has transpired to Americans, and saying that that was not the cartel's doing. They actually have members of the cartel who went against what they stand for. And so when they turned in the 2 people who were still alive, they also turned in people from the actual cartel. So the cartel actually issued an apology saying that they don't condone killing innocent people, especially Americans, and that they want to make this right. And the way that they're making it right is by turning in the people in the cartel that went against what they stand for and that they had nothing to do with it. So when I heard this, I reached out, like, where they do that out at? Because I mean, now the cartel has PR also. So I mean, how does this go about? Because I'm like, okay, is the cartel like, oh, we need to get in front of this? How do we present this to the world? And then they go reach out to their PR representative, and the PR puts it out to the world, to the U.S. Because I'm like, we all know what the cartel does. They kill people all the time. What they do, is illegal. Period. So I'm like, what is going on? And I was like, did I read this correctly? And this is like CNN type stuff. This is like a room. So I'm like, I got to out and be like, what's going on here? So that was the story on our end. I'm curious to see, because you haven't told me this. So what's the story from Mexico? Please let me know.
I mean, so the best I understand the story from Mexico is there's no story. I mean, like the story from Mexico is there is no story. I had to put that in my search to get any parts of the information you put in, you just said, and then on top of that, it has never shown back up on my phone. Now we all know very clearly that when you search something, it continues to show up. It starts showing you the consistency. So what am I saying? If I'm not mistaken, and don't quote me on this, the United States has a Mars and Gemini chart. Mexico, where I live, does not. So what transit is happening right now in the sky that we're talking about, which is gate 12, Mars and Gemini. So the United States, its chart of the US as a country is Mars and Gemini. So this transit affects the United States, but it does not affect me in a sense living right here in Mexico. My own phone, nothing has shown again another search.
So
now,
wait, so we don't
say it
have,
again.
and you don't have that going on the chart of Mexico. What is that? What you mean there? Am I missing something?
So what I mean in the sense is this transit of the Sun, Mercury, and Neptune squaring media, which is Gemini, we're not going to get that particular form of confusion. It's not a story. So again, this transit is happening all over the world. It doesn't matter where you're at. But
Okay.
this is just an example of
But
like when we say it again.
You're saying it's not affecting Mexico.
Well,
you're not seeing the information, the news.
exactly. It's just more prominent to happen as a scheme for turbulence.
Yeah, I got you.
In a chart. So it's used as to create turbulence. I am curious to take and see what one of these keywords look like. Back on my end, I'm gonna go to 12, which is okay, vanity. So this is an interesting one. Of gate 12, this is Mars and Gemini. The shadow itself is vanity. We work into discrimination, and I hope you understand what that means. And then we get to purity. Okay, so vanity is this scary thing. Okay, vanity. Yo, talk about it. Vanity is scary because vanity is very closely linked to pride and ego in a sense, but vanity is very silent. It's very quiet. It's very polished. You know, vanity can ride with you up the scale of your spiritual ascension. And even when you're at the peak of your enlightened state, vanity most times will still find ways to attach onto you, where pride and ego, these things kind of wither away as you become enlightened. And I'm quote unquote this on purpose, as you become enlightened. And so when I learned this about Gemini, from a genealogical standpoint, okay, from a biology of the human body, this is actually in it affects our parathyroid and our thyroid systems, okay, as well as like the thymus. And this throat chakra, where Gemini is laying, it is oftentimes translated into shield. In multiple cultures, multiple languages throughout time, this gate, but separate from that gate, the thyroid is translated into shield. So what are we saying? We're talking about something that speaks, something that is aware. It's a voice box. It's our larynx. Our larynx is our voice box, and this is physiologically aligning with the Mars and Gemini. Okay. And so what I'm saying is, it's like, now you have Mars. Mars is always going to take action. Gemini is in speech, it's in language. So we're speaking, we're acting, it's media, it's transportation, right? It's news and outlets. So when you have Mars who's malefic, it causes harm. That's a standard procedure of Mars, no matter what sign it's in. You have Gemini in this place of media, connects to our throat, where we can actually voice harm. We can literally face this shadow of vanity. And what's dangerous about this is, like, this is the kind of person who doesn't believe that they're vain. And it's like, with that within itself, as soon as a person starts commenting on whether they're not vain or not, that usually is a person still operating out of vanity. Now, I want to take a moment to like just define vanity. I'm going to actually look it up and share it on screen. Matter of fact, yeah, okay. Pop, 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 pop. It doesn't even show a definition. Okay, definition, please. Okay. So here I am. I'm going to come in. I'm going to share the screen. Just vanity itself. And understand, vanity itself is going to show a different frequency than what this is talking about, because we're linking vanity to the physiology and the genes and the DNA of the human. So just be mindful of that. Now, when I go to vanity, here's the definition. Excessive pride and or admiration of one's own appearance and achievements. Now, separate, a secondary definition could be futility, worthlessness. And that futility, even the potential worthlessness, is a part of what we're talking about. So let me help you understand what I mean. Okay. How many people have existed in the world and they felt like their voice, no matter what they say, was just futile? You're trying to say something, no matter how many times you try to say it, no one gets it. It's like you start realizing that no matter what I say, no one's going to get it. Mm-hmm. Right? So I feel like everybody, just for a simple, has at one point in their life, maybe we don't live that consistently, maybe we did for a phase, all that doesn't matter. Just think of that for a moment. Now, considering vanity itself is also linked with excessive pride, and let's just say we take in the definition that I gave as well in conjunction, where it's this silent thing that we wear. It's a silent cloak that we wear. I'm now saying that me as an individual who has the power to influence the media, influence the news, to say something with my personal influence on my channel, on my blog, on my whatever, But we have this 12, which I'm talking now, connecting to this 22 of this emotional power. So like the action that I'm taking generally is emotionally charged. So it's like we're taking an intellectual sign who is in a planet in a position of irritability. It's irritated, and it's literally irritated. Our mind is irritated. It's fluttering. It's ADHD style. And so we're wearing this suit of excessive pride, but it's silent. And we're ascending, and because when we talk Pisces back in the solar plexus, it's like this is God energy. I mean, separate from the solar plexus itself, Pisces itself is God. It's literally God. It's not us learning to believe in God. It's just being in touch and in tune with God. There's a difference. It's like it's not a belief system. It's just a being, like an essence, if you will. It doesn't have a physical form at all. It doesn't even communicate in any language, no matter what language. It's not speaking Arabic. It's not speaking English. It's not speaking Spanish. It is an essence. So it will feel what is the message. Period. It will feel wind come brush up on its skin, and that will inform this energy to take a left. There's nothing spoken. It's spoken through body language, spoken through emotion, spoken through energy. So we're being charged through our actions intellectually because Mars is action, but that action is starting as you see the throat was connected to the solar plexus. It's emotionally charged. So what on the negative side of this narrative, creating a certain sense of delusion, let's say what was put on CNN in the US about cartel business, which everybody I'm literally in Mexico, and I'm like, when I heard it, I was like, what? There's nowhere in the world the cartel is going to sit there and come on television and admit and say something like, okay, we did harm, we did damage. Everyone here knows that you don't even really say that word out loud. I mean, I'm just telling you, like, the simple fact, like, you don't generally say that word out loud. It's just a simple rule of thumb. If you ever say it, you're whispering it to your friends.
And
Which it,
I
go ahead.
I want to say, article also it talked about how the reason why the cartel was coming forward is because it's bad for business. The cartel didn't say that, but that's what they explained. How they explained it in the article is like the cartel knows if this happens with the United States, it's bad for business. In the sense of a lot of Americans may not want to come to Mexico, and so the way that they traffic their drugs from the U.S. to Mexico and back and forth, then that now makes it more. It makes it harder because now the spotlight is put on them. So fast forward to the next day. I didn't even tell you this, P, but I actually had a trip planned to go to college in May. And so it was going to an actual retreat. And so the people who do the retreat actually contacted us and said that a lot of people were calling because they were concerned about what happened with the 4 Americans coming down to Mexico. And so now they canceled the actual all of the retreats in Cabo, and they were like, you can move to another date that we have. What they have one in Morocco, they have one in different places. So I think that this is definitely going to affect, I guess, the cartel and other people because now Americans are scared to go to Mexico. So this is what they were thinking. The cartel was thinking was going to happen is actually happening. And
so here's the irony of all of that, right?
Them not to say anything at all. To not, because if they hadn't said anything, then they just don't know what happened, right? But the fact that the cartel issued an apology, it scared all of these Americans who go down to Mexico, and now they're like, we don't want to go.
This is the point. This is the emotional mass confusion.
It was fake news to begin with, and I think social media has made it seem like or people are really doing weird stuff that was never done before because of social media it has a life of its own now. And so I think the media has taken that where the media isn't real media anymore. And so I think this is all a result of it. And yeah, it's an illusion, literally. But it does have its after effects, as everything does, cause and effect.
So this is exactly what I'm talking about. I want to address that. One, I need to likely switch my Wi-Fi because have I been in and out?
So you
Or have I
speaking
been?
you speaking fine, but you do look like the screen is kind of blurry.
Okay, let me just switch my Wi-Fi. Anything you want to share, I'm just going to put you on screen for a moment. And in case they lose me, you'll likely still be there.
Okay. I'm like, oh.
So in And then meanwhile, you know, feel free to elaborate. If anything, if there's any more you wanted to say around the 12 to 22 in that
Okay.
channel, feel free to
Yeah.
say it. Or any relations back to the people you know with the 35, 36.
Okay, so I can speak to both. So the people that I know with the 35, 36, again, that's an emotional wave, amazing person. They're able to make things happen. Again, they're a crisis manager. The actual 35 is the gate of new experiences. And so what can happen is in the not self is that they become addicted to always needing a new experience. But together they're able to work through different crises and depending on what's going on. As far as still they have to go through their emotional wave, and this is an emotional wave that is very, very turbulent. It is I call this the builder, right? Because they what happens in this particular person I'm thinking of, they build things, they create things. And so what happens is this particular person is in events. And so with them, they build like they organize everything that's for this event. And so it builds, it builds, it builds, it builds. And then the event comes and then they crash. Like they literally crash. And so it can be very depressing. A lot of people with this channel deal with depression. You can imagine, I mean, if they're crisis managers, crisis is not necessarily a good thing always. And so depression is definitely prevalent actually in both of the channels, in the 12-22 as well. These are I'll jump over to the 12 and the 22. These people are very, very creative. Some people that I can think of right offhand that are famous that have the 12-22. I think Adele has it. She's actually a manifester. Nicki Minaj has it. And so they're very creative. If you think of Nicki Minaj in particular, she's very animated in her, always has been very animated in her style of the way she raps. But again, she can sing. They have great voices, but um their depression is a big thing. And so a lot of times with creativity you hear that people creativity or their biggest things that they create come from when they were in a depressive state. And so those are the things that are prevalent in people who have defined emotional centers, but specifically with these two channels. There's one other channel that has, because all of the channels, anybody who connects the emotional center with another center is an emotional being, but some channels aren't as crazy or turbulent as some of the others. And the 35-36, the 22-12, and actually the 55-39 are all three channels that are extremely turbulent, and the emotional wave is really real. And so if you have anyone in your life that has any of have patience with them, but also especially if you have an open solar plexus, give them their space for you. You need the space for yourself so that you don't take on those emotions yourself. Because what'll happen is you'll be around them, they'll be somewhere in their emotional wave, you'll leave, and you'll be mad, or you'll encounter other people, and all of a sudden their anger is coming out, and you might be whatever they were in that wave, it's like in you now, and then you're going and spread that amongst other people. So the best thing for you is to go your own space and realize what emotions are yours and what are not.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you spoke on a lot of things that really matter. So like you brought up Nicki Minaj. I think was it Adele? I don't even know who it is.
Yeah, Dale.
Adele. So Adele, Nicki Minaj. This is exactly what I mean when I say like, okay, these are individuals who have an influence. They have a voice. These are. She said. I think there was a manifester. She literally can voice these things and guide us and inform us, right? And part of what it is, when you said how animated she is, like this is Pisces and it's Neptune. It creates its own true reality. Now, what's magical about this and the realities that it creates is it is here to open up the hearts of humanity and to, in a sense, with this moon and Sag kind of bringing in with the combination, right? They're like brothers and sisters. Sag and Pisces are like brothers and sisters in the same domain of Jupiter. But it's like this animation, this art form is helping us to take life less seriously. And this is a lot of what the whole sun squaring Gemini is about. It's bringing in the fake news. This one's obvious. Now we became aware of it and how these deceptive truths had told stories. But it's like Pisces and Sag energy, they don't really align with the logic behind what's happening in the world. They're truly just living out their own character. And that within itself is bringing the world to the gift of this 36th gate, okay, which the sun in Pisces, which is humanity. And humanity in this understanding is like, look, we must all see suffering at some sense of an equal playing field. And this is where things like 2020 gets us all locked up, right? Because what happened? The whole world couldn't say that they have not experienced the same sort of suffering of just staying in the home. And then the fact that that's suffering, staying in the home, it's like it's a part of bringing that sense of suffering, being locked in your home, not being able to go out, not being able to club, which may be considered suffering. But it's showing that like this was not suffering at all. So this whole thing behind Pisces and Sag type energy is like how many people loved and learned how much they love being home, how much they desire to work from home, how much they no longer want to work in the 9 to 5, which before was a what? Collective suffering. I mean, let's be serious. The 9 to 5, everybody working in this office or cubicle was a form of suffering. But that's very, you know what I'm saying? These are quadrants, right? Not every person in the world had to go through that. So this Pisces, these Pisces energies, Pisces gate is in a sense creating, it's through our unconscious and collective emotions and how we have all in a certain frequency linked to this astral plane, to the dream world, and we all found ourselves suffering in some way that we finally united in suffering. This is the gift of humanity in a sense, to take exactly what Monica just said and going through these emotional waves and going through these tremendously depressive um, expressions and time frames of like just critical chaos and crisis, literal crisis. It's through that we have essentially come together with Gate 36 in the gift format of humanity. It's like now that we have all leveled out the playing field of what suffering looks, feels like, mostly feel like, and we've seen how creativity is born from that. We've seen how, you know, in a sense, we're gaining retribution through this crisis.
Mhm.
And
And
against who and for who, that's a different story. Go ahead, give it to me.
is with 12 and the 22 specifically, like with people who have this, don't be afraid to take time to yourself to really figure out, okay, not wanting to be around people, being in your own space, because being in your own space allows you to, when you do speak, that you're speaking from a place of groundedness,
Mm.
you, and so you have more impact. But if you go and you don't take that time of stillness to yourself, to be still or to be away, when you just ride this wave in a sense and you speak, then you might burn people, because it's not from coming from a ground place. This is a very chaotic channel. So so what I was hearing for this week, going into this week's astrology, is it is not a week to really truly act. It is a week to where you want to just kind of be really grounded and just have the whatever thoughts they are, whatever, however crazy they are, just sit on them for a little bit. Don't go
Mm.
out there and be like, oh, I got to do this, or I got to fix this, or I need to have this conversation with that person. Like, just really just sit on it if you can. In some instances, I understand that you may not be able to do that, but to hold it. But the best thing would be to just hold what comes to you, what intuitions or whatever information comes to you, or whatever the situations are. Just to take that, no matter how crazy it is, and sit with it, and maybe wait till next week. That's what I like. That's what
No,
I think.
1,000%. I've seen. I haven't really seen much. I've heard that in the whims, like just the astrology reports of the week, and it makes total sense. I want to add this in because what you just said is 1,000% on point. Now, what you see in human design, and you know in that channel, you know very clearly that that's not going to happen collectively speaking. So on an individual level, let's say you happen to hear this message and you take heed to it, you're gonna, in a sense, be able to witness the madness
Yeah.
and the chaos.
Because what it means from a human design standpoint, I want to talk about the transits, right? So at any given time, you have your set human design chart that is you all the time. It is always active, whatever those channels are that you have, right? That are connected. The thing is, like in astrology, there are transits. There are transits in human design. And so what happens is when you have a transit that is active, that typically is not active in your chart, where you don't have gate or or the channel, then that that channel is now part of your design. And so what it does is it causes you to act like you're not against your strategy or whatever your type. So in this, with the 12 and the 22, it's best for you just not to act this week on anything that's just crazy, or if you have this epiphany or whatever, just wait till next week, because more than likely it's not yourself, it's your not self. And so next week, when you'll still have that information, you'll be able to make a decision from a grounded standpoint because you don't have that channel active anymore. Now, that's not to say you can't make that decision. The thing is that if you do feel like you need to make a decision right now, just check in with your strategy and authority. And so in the case of, I'm a projector, so I need to wait for an invitation before I go and speak the information. More importantly, if I'm invited, I need to make sure that I'm recognized for what my gifts are before I decide to go ahead and speak my mind. If you are a generator, you need to wait to be initiated, not initiated, but you need to be you need to wait for someone to come to you so that you can respond to something, but also check in with your authority, which if you have an emotional system, or you have a gut, like a generator, you, in your sense, P, your generator, you have to check in and trust your gut, right? So just make sure in a week like this that you trust your strategy and authority, because that won't lead you wrong.
1000%. I want to paint a picture of where we came from and where we currently are for the next week or so, because like she said, this is going to be a super dramatic week. It just is. And you had said something that's so true. You know, over the last like 2 to 3 days, I've been recognizing that like in my physical body is slipping from the ground. Like, no, literally, I'm not kidding. Like my physical body has been slipping from the ground. I'm talking like, I mean, I'm walking the same streets I walk every day. You know what I mean? And I'm like walking, I'm stepping up on a curve, and I slip and like hyperextend my knee. Okay, what? And then the next day, essentially, the same thing happens again in a different scenario. And the second time it happened, my spirit let me know, like, okay, you've been telling yourself to ground for days prior to this, but this has nothing to do with you, Pernell. This is you collecting and picking up on the collective energy of the world is not grounded right now. And the message just came super clear to me in that moment. And this is one of the things with Mercury and Pisces, we can align with this frequency. Now, what is essentially shaking our spirit, our emotional power right now, and essentially creating us to act more from an emotional place of true turbulence, is these core wounds are starting to come up. I'm gonna label them and list them here. Repression. Now, this is major on sexuality. This is one of the pieces I didn't speak much about yet, but like when you talk to solar plexus, you're oftentimes very much talking sexual energy. Creative energy is sexual energy. I've said this over and over and over in so many different ways. Creative energy is sexual energy. Sexual energy is creative energy. How you use it, there's a thought process of, okay, this means physical sex. That's just like not the case. It is the case, but it's too slim of a way to use and understand sexuality and sexual energy. It's slim, right? It is on the lower frequencies working through desire. Now, desire is a potent and powerful thing, huh?
True desire has nothing to do with sex at all. Actually.
Nothing at all. Exactly.
However, you did say sex, so I have to do, since we are talking about the 36 gate, Ra, who is the founder of human design, actually calls, can I cuss on here? Calls the 36 gate the fucking gate. So yeah, but that's very much the shadow side of it.
And that's what you just hit it. Like, this is where a lot of the repression is coming, and it's because like when we get into our reactive state of, let's say your sexuality, my sexuality, anybody's sexuality is repressed, and I'm telling you right now, while it's in Pisces and while it's in the Sun, the world is becoming consciously aware of how it has misdirected its sexual energy and used it to just fuck like wild rabbits over and over and over.
Collective, we're starting to realize that sex is definitely more than sex, right? And so the in as a collective, where a lot of people used to get satisfaction from just having sex with multiple people, new experiences, like just loving that. Now it's like it doesn't have the high that it used to have. As a collective, I mean, people have been, becoming more enlightened and aware, even more so in 2020. But I believe that now it's like people are really starting to realize, are wanting more, realizing there has to be more to it, because it don't hit like it used to hit.
There has to be more. 1000%. 1000%. This is when you see the rises of things like media speaking of polygamy and, you know, essentially creating delusion around uh, ancient and more archaic times of kings having multiple wives and taking those pieces of information Gemini again, Mars, taking those pieces of information and diluting it, creating a story for chaos. And it makes me want to kind of step back into what the title of this was. I said something like the shield of compassion, and we're going to get into that. If you look back at the title of this, it says something about, I can't even remember anymore. It's something about like God taking us on a story, a trickster story, tricking us, truly allowing us to be tricked, taking us on a journey where it has nothing to do where we think we're linearly trying to go in a linear fashion. We think we're trying to go here, and it's like God is like, do this swirl. And it's like through that swirl, we essentially get to laugh at the pain that we've accumulated or experienced. I don't want to say accumulated, the pain that we've experienced along the way of taking this, illusionary path down a senseless road, literally to get us to start laughing at how serious we have been in so many different aspects. But that was what the cover is. And I wanted to kind of bring that back because, you know, back to what Monica said, this 22nd gate, which is where the sun was just 2-3 days ago, and it shifted to 36. It was still Pisces. And then but now we have Mercury there, our minds, let's just say, how we learn, what we're learning. This 22nd gate speaks about the Akashic Ocean. Now, the Akashic Ocean is nothing different than where all feelings, thoughts, experiences, lifetimes, everything in a sense that has ever existed in any type of physical form is stored. This is where you go see your Akashic records to get in tune with those past life events or any event. I mean, it's not even about just the past. It's the past, it's the present, it's the future. You can go and get it from any part at a soul level. My point being, this 22nd gate speaks about this Akashic Ocean. And this is really where the shadow is kind of like formed in this place of needing to recognize how have our individual thoughts, ideas, actions, beings, when it comes to anything, let's talk about this in a moment, sex, the sexual decisions we've made, how we have repressed sexual energy, how we have experienced denial, how we go through shame of the sun is there. What shame have I experienced by realizing my connections to other humans or people in the sexual, physical manner and ignoring the soul connection part, right? The shame and the guilt, and how has that shame and guilt been used to make others feel inferior? Well, this can now be your best friend, slut shaming you kind of thing. And it becomes this moment where maybe they try to make a joke and laugh about it, but deep down are actually using it to make you feel inferior. All of this is a part of the emotional chaos that I'm speaking about when it comes to the 36th gate in Pisces active. The 22nd was there. This is not just our particular lifetime. That's my point when I said this Akashic Ocean. These records are, in a sense, surfacing. We're going to go through a lot of dark nights of the souls that literally, say it again.
Like you feel like it's tapping in on a collective area, collective, as a collective whole, that like it's people are starting to tap in, or it's starting to be made aware whether they're enlightened or not.
Part of it, at bare minimum, and I wanted to pause because this is a part of the vanity gate of gate 12. This is a part of the gate of where vanity was the shadow, and purity was the Siddhic frequency. When I say Siddhic, I mean like, okay, you move beyond the shadow, you integrate the shadow to a point where you're no longer even resonate with the shadow or the gift, you essentially just leave life. I mean, you just don't reincarnate. You're like, you no longer have basically all the acidic frequencies of each of these gates. You no longer really have a physical form. I mean, like, so, but to cover what you said, it's like that within itself about enlightened or not enlightened. I see my sister saying this, and like one of the things, this is a prime example. My sister saying, her partner saying, "You're not woke. You're not woke. You sleep. You're not enlightened." These simple phrases itself is just what I just said. Shaming and guilting people to, in a sense, hide our repressed sexuality,
Coming from a place
hide,
of inferiority, and that instead of
boom.
people where they're at and realizing, hey, I once was there. Or if you were never there, you've always been enlightened, which is highly unlikely. To have compassion, to be able to say, hey, sister, hey, brother, I see where you're at. I see you, and help bring them over to where they do understand it. I have to say this, and you can stop me.
No. Go ahead.
When it comes to the whole sex thing, I speak on this a lot because, we just having sex out there. People are just having sex. And so sex is supposed to be about the other, right? Sex is about supposed to be pleasing the other, and in doing that, you please yourself, right? And so what's happening is you have people out there having sex for themselves. Or if they are trying to please the other, they're trying to please them from a place of the ego, right? And so what you have
Mm-hmm.
is people masturbating with people's bodies. And so that I just have to say that because it's just it's crazy right now. Like, I think it's at an all-time high of people just having sex, just fucking, you know what I mean? And so that, I know that's off topic, or we were just, I mean, what I was just saying, but
No,
I
it's not.
definitely,
No, it's not.
but compassion, and also not judging people, definitely seeing yourself in someone else allows for compassion, because we're always growing, we're always supposed to be learning. So you should never get on a high horse and be like, oh, I'm woke, or I'm enlightened, or I'm this, because now you're at this point. You need to humble yourself and remember when you thought like they did, and you may not thought exactly like them, but there was a point where you didn't know what you know now. And so we have to start having compassion for the other, because that's the only way that we're actually going to be able to move forward in a positive direction as a whole. And so cancel culture, because basically that's what you're doing. You're kind of canceling that person, saying you're not woke. And so I would go as far as to say some of the people who say they are completely woke, they're not woke either, because they're alienating other people, and other who may really truly be trying to understand for the greater good, but because they don't know what you automatically cancel them out. And so we can't have growth in that sense.
No. So this is 1,000%. Like this is you just explained the vanity piece of gate 12. Now, like literally, that's what you just did that to perfection, right? Now, I'm a drive in.
Get it now. Purity, discrimination, vanity. I see it.
Exactly. So this is what brings us to discrimination. This is the gift frequency of this 12 gate. You see 12 here, and then you see discrimination. All right. Now, this is what's beautiful, right? This needs to happen. Everything you just said, all these stories need to happen. This is what I meant where God took us on this delusionary trickster journey. And we had to essentially believe what we believed. We had to act on our emotions that charged us, whether the action was stupid or whether it was enlightening or whether it was helpful or whether it was harmful, or the whole gamut of Nicki Minaj drama. We all as a collective need to go through that so we can surface our collective karma and start dealing with repression, denial, shame, guilt, and the list just goes on. Okay, on some of these core kind of human wounds, rejection, separation,
And
right?
realize that
All
once,
that, when we use these stories, it's bringing us to the gift of the 12th, which is discrimination.
yeah.
And discrimination is now saying,
Wait, you froze.
I'm sorry, what'd you say? I missed you.
No,
I know,
you
I
had
know, I know.
no,
I
what
don't
I
know
was gonna
what it
say
is,
is
man. My
all of
Wi-Fi acting funky today.
you behind. I was saying that all of the words that you just spoke, we all feel those things at some point in our life, maybe not all at one time, but we've all felt those things at some point. And so the thing is to have compassion for others and realize that we are real human beings, and we're not perfect, and perfectionism is not a reality. And anytime you're striving for perfection, then you're in the shadow side of who you are and who you're meant to be. We lost P again. And I'm in the spotlight.
Okay. Yeah, my jumping, y'all. It's been jumping. I missed you from wherever you were at last.
No, I was just saying that, those words that you were calling out, which I did hear you, it was just delayed with you
Mm-hmm.
weren't up with me, but those words that you were just saying, we all have felt those things at some point in our life, maybe not all at the same time, but we all feel them. And so what we need to do is have compassion for ourselves, but also have compassion for the other when they're going through that. And anytime that you don't have that compassion, or you're reaching for perfectionism, which is not real, then you're in the shadow side of who you're supposed to be. Like you have to we're not perfect, and so leaving room for those mistakes, and having those feelings of guilt or shame and compassion is how we move forward as a collective.
So what's important about that, right? Because in a sense, in a couple more days, this Akashic ocean where all this karmic and collective suffering, because a lot of this is about crisis, suffering, and how we get trained in a sense to deal with crisis and suffering. So what I'm like, the simplicity of this is a very positive transit, because all of us are getting ready to go through, while Aries sun comes up and the Aries north node and the Aries eclipses, we're all about to go through a tremendous war.
Yeah.
So I don't say this to fearmonger you. I say this to just be simply real, that the reason this stuff is coming up now, and the reason we need enough isolation and just naps and just time to ourselves to just experience the shame, the guilt, the repressed sexuality, and how we manipulate others when our sexual energy is repressed, how we dominate and be inauthentic when it's repressed, right? All these other things, when the divine feminine is in its shadow frequency, all this was a diversion, which is what this square of the sun and Mars is, Mercury and Mars, Neptune and Mars. It's an illusion that we were ever off track, that we were never supposed to go through all of those less flowery emotions.
Mhm. I'm excited about this Aries energy. I got Aries all in my chart. And so Aries is very passionate, but very much about getting things done, very much about going, moving forward, And so yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this all manifests moving forward.
Well, what's beginning to happen, when we go back to 12, and why 12 has a big part, Gemini, basically Mars and Gemini is gate 12. All right. This is now us having discrimination as a tool in the presence of the vanity that we just spoke. So when we now recognize the vanity of your woke or your sleep and the whole story, and more, right? Those experiences, the emotions that we felt during those time frames, are allowing us to decide what stays and what goes. It allows us to discriminate. Is literally allowing us to say, no, I'm not going down that path. It's
Mhm.
literally saying, no, I've already experienced shame, with Jerome in 1996, and I was emotionally turbulent, and we miscommunicated, and we're going through all these conflicts. But through that, I don't need to go, do the same thing with Jerry, because Jerry, who I'm meeting in 2023, he's not really offering that same thing. So if I dealt with my stuff, I'm now discriminating appropriately to realize I'm just not going to mess with Jerry. I'm just not going to mess with Jerome. And it's literally starting to say, look, my experiences, the collective suffering that we're all facing, I don't even have to be the one to go through it, because I saw my girl Gina go through that with her man. I learned through that suffering. And you likely, no matter who we are on this, had to go through the same suffering. Everybody had to go through being cheated on. It didn't have to be in a marriage. It didn't have to be in, everybody has been cheated on, whether people admit it or not, whether people have those stories out loud or not. Collectively, we all have had someone that we loved sleep with another person, whether it was out of spite or whether it was just out of following their emotion in the moment and not thinking forward. Doesn't even matter at this point. We all have felt the pain somehow, some way of being cheated on, even if it wasn't physically, it was emotionally being cheated on. If it wasn't emotionally, it was mentally being somehow, some way. And what all that pain and suffering has done is it put us at the gift of humanity. Yeah. Humanity is saying, look, this is what made Jesus the other three, Trinity. When you talk to Trinity, being Hermes, Jesus, and Buddha, this is what Jesus or Christ was for: sacrifice, to be a God pinned up like a human, to feel all the same pain.
So do you feel like this week people are going to have downloads? They're going to have their intuition is going to kick in from previous things, and like they'll be like after this week they'll be able to move forward in a different direction or in a different way? Or is it going to be like a more drawn out thing?
This week people will have nervous breakdowns. Nervous breakdowns.
I'm like, what?
This week it's getting crazy.
Like me and my nephews they've never flown before. I'm taking them. We flying out on Thursday to LA to go to a game, and I'm like, knowing all of this, I'm like, oh shit.
This week, the energy will be very high, and people will have nervous breakdowns. Nervous breakdowns extended over a period of time will turn into chronic diseases. These chronic diseases will become cancer or some form of a mental illness, schizophrenia, the whole nine. Now, when I say this, I would like to back up and say that these moments of schizophrenia, multiple personality disorders, quote unquote, narcissism, all these things, all these mental ailments, Alzheimer's, they're only happening so that we can shatter the reality that we thought was reality. It's to shatter the delusion that, in a sense, God had to put us in collectively to feel the same pain.
So,
and
when you talk about all these different mental illnesses, I have to say, and some people may get mad when I say this, but I don't feel like they're necessarily fully real. And I don't
they're not
fully real because I feel like it's an illusion. I feel like it's because of we've been taught to deal with trauma. And so often, it's generational stuff. Things are swept up under the rug. We're told like, hey, we have to be perfect, right? In a sense. So because we aren't dealing with the real self, not dealing with the shame, the guilt, and different things, then they manifest as disease, chemical imbalances. They manifest as these different mental health issues. And I feel like, hopefully, as a collective, I'm seeing people starting to take time for themselves, talk about astrology, talk about human design, and talk about like shame and guilt and all the things we've been talking about today, which is helping uncover those traumas and healing so that we don't have that as it's not as prevalent, I guess, in a sense. So that's just my view, and everyone doesn't agree, and that's fine. But I think that that's where all that comes from, is just not really dealing with things. And again, it goes back to the illusion of things and putting a Band-Aid on things or smoothing things over and not dealing with what's under the surface.
I mean, 1,000%. 1,000%. I mean, this is all of this is happening because of exactly what you just said. And like I said, I name these diseases, these disorders out because it's a part of what's shattering. This is the whole thing. It's a part of what's shattering. The looking at a moment of depression as a bad thing, as I need to go to the doctor, I need to take these pills.
Big pharma. It's all a scam. Like the plants and the things that come from the earth are here to heal us. And so I don't want to get controversial and go into the deep things, but I'll just say marijuana for instance, it heals a lot. And like it was banned, psychedelic drugs or different things that help with healing. We're all banned, and now you have big pharma who's pushing pills out, and you have people who are taking medications every single day,
Mm-hmm.
every single day, and it's masking the reason behind why they have the issue in the first place. But the money, it's a constant just cycle of they get, and it's all about, it's all funding the big pharma, and it's money going into the pockets. It's all a part of the, I mean, with the stock market, everything. It's just, yeah. And
1000%. You brought me to this. You brought me to this.
they tell me to shut up when I need to shut up, because I can go.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I would say something. It brings us to this. Like I said, right now, you see dishonor as the shadow. You see graciousness as the gift, and actual grace. So graciousness is like practicing the grace, if you will. When we actually get touched by grace, like everything we're saying right now literally has no impact on us. Like literally. But I'll explain that in a moment. Dishonor, and what this is saying and implying right now, okay, as I show it to the screen, I'm gonna get ready to get out of here and come back to you. Dishonor is saying, are we honoring our emotional wave? That's what it's saying. So Monica spoke earlier about having a defined solar plexus. Okay, great. Right now, this is the motor that has priority over all. Okay, great. There's a whole bunch of planets of Pisces in the sky. Boom. Dishonor is saying, okay, you have this emotion, you feel a certain way, and then you, in a sense, lie about it. You say, I'm not having this emotion. I don't feel this. You put yourself in a disillusioned state. And because we don't necessarily want to deal with it, we then take the path of least resistance, which is truly not the path of least resistance, and we go to the pharmacy, we go to the doctor, we look for them to support our dishonesty. We literally manifest another dishonest practice, and we get them to supply us pharmacy pills that put us further away and deeper into a state of the Maya, or the illusion, or samvara.
It suppresses it. I want to use someone who everyone knows, and you mentioned him earlier, Kanye West. Kanye West is a genius. He is brilliant. He's not perfect, and he's done some things, said some things that are crazy. However, he is a creative genius. I don't
Who?
know Kanye West. I
Oh,
don't
1000%.
I don't know what his creative channel is. I'd have to look at his chart. But the thing is that when he takes his antidepressant medication, he blows up as far as his weight, and then all of a sudden he gets quiet. So you said you haven't been seeing Kanye West. You heard a lot of stuff in October. All of a sudden, you're not really hearing anything from him. He has been quiet. However, paparazzi, they've shown pictures of him with his new wife, and he's gained weight. He's significant weight since the last time we saw him last year, and he hasn't been saying anything as far as social media or going on any rants or anything. And it's probably because he's on his med. And so the meds are, and he's even talked about how when he takes his meds, his creativity leaves. And so that just speaks to what you just said, like, in a sense, like, when people have their little episodes or whatever's going on, they go to the pharmacy. And so I spoke to the 12 and the 22. I said about the 35-36 channel is that
This is Kanye.
the people are creative beings, and they do go through depressive states, but in those depressive states, they have, oh wow, okay.
This is Kanye.
He has the 42-53. I'm not as familiar with that channel, but he does have the 12 and he does have the 35.
Mm-hmm.
Hanging gate.
Which means that right now, these 22 and 36 are active.
So I mean, if he's not fully suppressed, he may actually say something this week. He may go off the rails, or the medication may have him so suppressed he's not. But people who have this channel or have these gates, when the transits happen, they feel it more heightened than they normally. Because if you think about people who don't have it, we feel it, right? So imagine people who actually have these hanging gates or have the actual channels, it's just amplified. So he might do or say something this week. I don't know. In a sense, I hope not. But just cause we don't need it right now. But yeah.
No, so, and whether he does or he doesn't say something, what I want people to really understand about this is like, this is a truly beautiful time. And what makes it beautiful is that we're all going to somehow, some way experience, at bare minimum, become conscious of what did we experience as a form of suffering that has brought us closer to humanity, that has brought us closer to the spaces of grace, that has brought us closer to the space of compassion, and has taken us away from wanting to be dishonest. It's allowed us to start learning how and why to discriminate in certain situations and environments, how to allow our emotional power to charge us and become the motor that essentially breaks us through the astral plane, the astral body altogether, and moves us into our mental body. And when I say that, we're looking at the physical body here, and then here you have the emotional body, or what can be considered the astral body, right? This is our dreams, our emotions, this is our intuition, and being able to respond from that. And then we move beyond that, and we still have this, and we go to this third level, which is not a mental body, where it's like you can discriminate. This is the Gemini Mars. We're able to discriminate how to act on these emotions, when I should just take a moment to wait and chill out and wait till next week before I make that project. That's the mental body. And then this is where these three that I just mentioned, physical, astral, and mental, these are the lower bodies. These are the lower human frequencies, all three of them. Now, most are already doing that. Now, collectively, we've essentially all got through that, right? Now, when we move out of that, we're talking the fourth body, we're talking causal. We're talking the causal plane, the causal body. And this is what is reinforming our physical body. And I don't want to even go too much further than that, but if just for those who understand this, that above that causal body is the Buddhic body. And that Buddhic body relates to the astral body, or the higher frequencies of the emotions, higher frequencies of the intuition, the higher frequencies of the watery Piscean type of influence and emotional power, as well as emotional confusion. The Buddhic body is not acting and being driven by its emotional confusion. It embraces his emotional confusion as a precursor to divinity, to just receiving the answer without having to work for it, period. Right? And so again, I'm gonna step out of that, but just to help you understand a little bit of the picture that I'm trying to paint in the moment. All of this chaos is only for us to become aware of what has already happened, what has collectively been here and born before we were alive. Our sexuality repressions and denials of, you know, what we deserve, all that, that's way before we existed. You and I were dead. We weren't alive. This stuff is so deeply programmed into our genome. But if I show you, because you know about the 3060 channel, no?
Which one?
3060?
You mean 3041?
I'm so sorry. The 360.
The
360.
360, the mutation channel.
Exactly.
Yes.
That is currently, and I'm going to show you, is
Oh,
currently active at the same time.
so listen, it's the whole channel is activated, right? But literally
Mm-hmm.
for months, so I have the third gate. So literally for months, I've had, because the 60 has been activated for months. So I connect the channel of mutation. It's been like that for months for me, because I have the hanging gate, the 3. But that's the channel of mutation. Yeah. And we're going through it right now. And it's very active.
Yeah. I'm checking her if she's still here or not. If you're still here, just say something, Shireen, and I'll answer this question about being a projector. If you're not, I'm gonna skip it because this is not a particularly about the projector. We have videos on that, and I can help you understand it. But if you're here, just say something in the chat, and we'll take the moment to describe that. So, Monica, in the meanwhile, whether she's here or not, okay, she's here.
Okay.
So stay here for just a second. Let me explain just a second. Monica, there's 3 to 60, the mutation. Can you connect the dots of everything we said so far about what this mutation channel is doing for the world? Because this is why I'm trying to tell people and promote that right now, aligning with the collective suffering is very beneficial. It will get you beyond the stages of being dishonest with your emotions. It gets you beyond the stages of all those shadow frequencies we just said prior. Can you tell us about the 360?
So 360 is about mutation. So if I'm taking into account everything that you said, I look at it as though it's going to allow everyone to come to a state of humanness, and for themselves
Boom.
and for everyone else. And so it's going to allow people to start having compassion, but it's either going to be hard for some people or it's going to be a little easier. I feel for the people who are already integrating and are compassionate for themselves and for others, it's going to be a little easier. But for people who are high on their horse and saying they're woke, or in that sense, I think it's going to be a lot harder, and it's going to be more humbling for them, and it's going to be kind of like a shock, right? For them to realize this, to be like, oh crap, I've been pointing the finger and talking about this and that, and then finally they're forced to look at themselves in the mirror, whether they want to or not. That's what I say.
Exactly. So what she just said is spot on point. And what I'm saying in conjunction to that is, at a molecular level, all of humanity is shifting its physical body so that we can receive different frequency forms. What I'm saying is we all need to get through this point where we experience the suffering. I had to throw a little smoke in here. We experience the suffering so that we can essentially, and it's not about transcendence. It's not about
going beyond.
It's not about going beyond and being so enlightened.
It's the reality of things of where we are right now, because people want to talk about enlightenment, and that can get scary too, because in a sense, I feel like when people say, oh, I'm enlightened, that's looking forward, expecting more, and it is for to look at the now.
But it's also going right back to that gate, that the one active Mars and Gemini of vanity. It's also going right back to that, because it's like when
illusion, Pisces, you have the illusion of imagination, right? And so the thing is that if you feel enlightenment, you're thinking, oh, there's this big thing coming, and it's like, no, it happens in the now, in the small little moments that lead to the big changes of where we're trying to go.
Exactly. And even, wow, see, so right where you had just said, the whole thing is, by time this enlightenment, the way that we have painted and portrayed the picture of what it's going to look like, everybody that's currently alive, by the time we truly hit in this point where we actually change forms and hit this enlightened phase, because we're not really going to hit this enlightened phase until we don't even have a physical form anymore. So as long as you see a human walking with two legs, guess what? You're not. And that vanity, that excessive pride that you are above someone else, or you're smart, or you know about spirituality, or you can intellectually explain to me the Buddhic body and this atmic body and the astral plane.
Not about intellect. It's
not about any of that.
Again, that's the shadow side when you go into the intellect, because anybody can learn those things, but to actually embody it and be in the embodiment of it, that at that point you are in the now, because you understand.
You just said it. You just broke these. You just broke the illusion in the moment. Yeah. This is what we're all needing, huh?
It's right now. It's in a sense. So I'll give the example of, a lot of times people say, like, the church always talks about going from heaven to hell. Heaven or hell is here on earth. We are here, physical beings in this earth. When we die, when we perish, we go back into the universe. Who we will still be here, but we no longer have physical form. So the thing is to experience life right now and not keep waiting for something to happen or wishing something could go back to the way that it is, because the only time that you're able to change anything or do anything in this life is in the present moment of right now.
Boom. And what I wanted to kind of elaborate from there, it's like, I especially want to talk to coaches, to mentors, to teachers. These are the people, in my opinion, and during this transit of this Pisces and this Sun squaring, our literal vitality, squaring intelligence, right? Squaring the actions we take based off of intelligence and not emotional power, not emotions involved in the mix of the two. And beyond that, it's the teachers right now who are aligning with being able to intellectually put a message out, but not speaking from their channel. And when I say their channel, I'm talking about their guides, not allowing their guides and their spiritual prowess to speak through them, rather than worrying about, will they gain favor? Will they gain subscribers? Will they gain likes? Will they have people want to start to give them gifts? Will people buy their service? There's too much emphasis put on these externals. And it's like,
that goes back to gate 12, like that speaking conscious or unconsciously, but it coming truly from you, not thinking about the influence of what's around or what's going to come from it. Because the thing is, if you're grounded in your truth, then whatever it is that you desire, true desire, it's going to come. Not in
Exactly.
monetary sense, because you're covered from
Exactly.
God's source or whatever. So the biggest thing is to stand still and know when you speak or whatever you decide to do that it's coming from a place of truth. It's coming from a place of groundedness, and it's coming from a place of purity.
Which, oh my God, you're saying the words. You're saying, and so right now that lets me know that you're speaking from yourself, because I'm telling you, you just said the actual word of the Vedic frequency. Okay, ready? If I slide over,
So you know my
no,
gene is to speak, not to think about it. So I'm doing that right now. It's like not to think about it, because whatever
this
I
is
think,
the word of the 12th gate.
it
Oops,
is.
sorry. So
I
we move from the vanity. Oh my
yeah,
God, stop. We move from the vanity.
literally.
We learn how to discriminate, and then we move and we operate from this pure frequency,
That's crazy. I mean,
where the pure frequency is completely stripped of the pride altogether.
yeah.
So that's the key. But let's step back in to the astro guide. Um, and Monica is a projector, so she'll help you understand this better than most.
Okay. So, with that, projectors, yes, we are supposed to wait for the invitation, especially in a generator world, because if we don't, a lot of times what we're saying, because we're here to see. And so what we see is often things that other people can't see, but it's not necessarily received well when we're not invited to share our gifts of what we see. As far as making the biggest decisions in your life, you don't necessarily have to be invited to make the biggest decisions in your life. What it means is you have to follow your strategy and authority. So if you know something comes to you and it's like I don't know, it's a job or something like that, then you just need to follow your strategy or authority. I for example, I'm a mental projector, so my way of my authority comes from being in an environment that I feel safe in and comfortable in, and talking with someone that I feel comfortable talking to, and soundboarding with them, and through talking and hearing myself say different things, then I come to my truth. Depending on what your authority is, whether you're emotional, you may have an ego.
She's emotional.
She's emotional. Okay, so you're emotional. So when you make your decisions, you can make the biggest decisions in your life are the ones where you're supposed to follow your authority. The way that you come to a decision in your life is to ride your emotional wave. I don't know what channel it is you have, but when you have to make a decision, make sure that you are grounded. And what that means is not to be in a low of your, not to be in a high of your emotions, but to be kind of even keel. And thing for you would be for somebody about that decision is, what do you want to do? And so if you're able to speak from that place and answer it from a place of groundedness where you're not in an emotional wave and it feels good to you, then that's the right decision for you. So you don't necessarily have to be invited for making the biggest decisions in your life, because it's not always an invitation, but it's just a matter of when with the invitation, it's about when you're ready to, when you're speaking what you're able to see. So when you're in a conversation with people or one-on-one or in a group or whatever, we see things that a lot of people don't see. So instead of just offering advice to someone or telling them what you see, the best thing are to wait for them to actually ask you for what you see, or say, hey, I would like to know your opinion. Or for you to be like, hey, if they're telling you something about what's going on in their life or whatever it is, you can say, hey, I see something here, but I wanted to know, is it okay if I share to you what I'm seeing or what I'm thinking right now, what I see as you know, and then you have to wait for them to say yes. If they say no, then they're not ready to look in the mirror and see. So that's what it means when it says, you know, wait for the invitation. Because often we're not here to do, we're here to see and show people what we can, you know, help streamline or make things better. So that's what it means when it says wait for the invitation. Because what happens is, if you don't wait for the invitation for something and you're giving people your knowledge or and you know trying to help them in a sense, and they don't receive it, then you become bitter, which is the not self. And you're mad because you spend all this time and this energy trying to tell them what you see and how they can do something better, but they're not ready to receive it or face the mirror. So now
Mm-hmm.
you're, because you're like, I did all this, see it, and now you're bitter, which makes you not in your not self.
That's the best. Whether this is about you or not, I have a candle lit, and I already knew. I already knew. This is why, like, I tried to, Monica, I sent this message to you like what, days ago? I mean, like almost a half a week ago or something first, and this was me waiting to put the message out. And I don't even theoretically, being a generator, like theoretically didn't need to wait as long, but I did. And this is how you see how transits, if we just follow our natural intuition, the transit is saying that the defined motor is the solar plexus, like I showed you on screen, which now means even as generator, even that waiting to talk this message was more important. The reason I say it is I knew that I needed to have extra protection before I got on this message. So one that looks like putting this obsidian on top of my computer, pyrite on top of the computer, taking some of the electromagnetic frequencies. I lit a candle on the side. It's pink salt in the candle, around inside of the candle, and that glass just broke in the middle of your explanation. So again, simple's like, spirituality 101, if glass breaks, it's not good. At bare minimum, it means there's an overflow. Generally, I know what I put this candle in for. I know what color I used. I used blue, part of for expression, literally part for expression, but I said for emotional protection, especially against delusion. That was literally the guidance that I got before coming on this live. And that candle just popped. I'm not kidding. It popped. It literally went, and I'm like, what the hell? And thankfully, we put the salt in and around it as well because, we kind of keep that stuff contained. My point is, this is what I was talking about when I say nervous breakdowns this week. So many people are going to go through the dark night of the soul. And the ways in which they have allowed themselves to intellectually deal with pain is not going to work. This is what this square looks like. It's not going to work because, like we just showed in the chart, the emotional power has priority right now. The emotional authority has priority right now over the intelligence, over the throat, over this awareness center. So what we say, anything we say, and that's coming from a place of dishonesty in any facet, these are the breaks. It's separate from that. There's all the keywords that we gave throughout it. I'm almost forgetting some of the other ones. Let me take a glance. Okay, we got the vanity was another one. These frequencies of vanity is not going to last. The dishonesty with emotions is not going to work. It's not going to last. The turbulence, we're all going to go through it. These are the keywords active currently right now. It's no matter what, we're all going through it collectively. And what it's doing is taking us on this journey. And that will allow us to start discriminating and saying, look, this person is not for me. This substance is not for me. Okay. This the types of sex and connections that I'm having with other people is not for me. Okay, we're discriminating. Great. The second side of that is to start doing things with graciousness, to start seeing our turbulence with a certain sense of grace. And through that, we're starting to transmute some of these lower frequencies full circle, which I spoke earlier, the denial, the repression of our sexuality.
Yeah. I want to add, it's going to allow people to start overcoming fear and actually saying yes to the thing that they've convinced themselves is wrong for them, but actually is the better for them in making decisions. Because oftentimes the things that are best for us are the harder thing to do, is the harder thing to do. And I feel like this energy is going to allow them to be like, okay, because they've already tried the bad way, right? Or the wrong way, or, and so I'm gonna say, okay, I don't know what's on the other side of this, but this is where I'm supposed to go. And I'm no longer going to allow fear to stop me from getting what my true desire is.
Exactly. Because the alternative is you loop.
You loop, and then you have the fog of the illusion, right? And so now you keep doing the fog of the illusion, right? And you're not getting to that desire. you're going after the false sense of desire, not the true intimacy or the reality of what you really truly desire. So humbling yourself, and then also on the other side of humbling is no longer caring how you're viewed for choosing that true desire, no matter how different it is from anybody else.
1000%. I want to make this clear because this is actually really true. Breaking glass can release the negative emotions as well. That's a fact. The key to discern and discriminate with this is it the release of negative emotion, or is it the denial of the emotion altogether? That is one of the ways I speak of. I'm not saying that this is you, just saying to give people collectively the clear vision through and through that the discrimination that we have to almost use with this gate 12 of Gemini of this last 5 to 6 months of this gate being not this particular gate, but of Gemini being in Mars, because it went through multiple gates and it changed to different Gemini versions of gates. But it's the intelligence, not taking our irritability and over intellectualize it and finding a way to escape our pain through intelligence. This is the key where, again, I'm not claiming that that's what you're personally doing. I'm saying for anyone watching on replay, because that glass breaking could have been for somebody that's actually not even on the live and might come 3 hours later watch it on replay. This is part of everything that's happening. Like it's never personal. Like it's just not. But what it is a declaration of how are we being honest, because like I said, dishonesty on an emotional level was a part of the shadow of one of these active gates. So it's like, are we being emotionally honest? Because that emotion in a sense will supersede intelligence. It's just overpowering intelligence right now. It's like, look, is this an intellectual avoidance of pain, or is this alignment? So my key is anyone listening, take that for that. You're gonna know if you're just being real and graceful, and not being vain. These key words, you're gonna know if it's okay. Wow, I just had a grand release, and generally you're gonna experience some sense of euphoria because this is the opposite side of the emotional solar plexus. It's not about bad emotions. It's any emotion, but it's feeling it all the way on this wave. Or on the opposite side, you have your other answers. Like, I'm feeling this is a great release, or this is me going through the dark night of the soul because I'm choosing to reloop. I'm choosing to loop again in the same illusion. But it's what's the hardest part and the most honest part I have to be right now is whatever you choose, you're going to be aware of it now. This is the difference. You're gonna go back into the loop, whoever you are. All of us collectively will go back into the loop. But if we choose the loop this time, we're consciously choosing the loop. We can't say that we don't know we're in the loop anymore. This is what is changing.
Yeah, and that's where that whatever it used to fulfill for you, the loop, now they're back in the loop and it's no longer fulfilling. Whereas before you had the illusion thinking that it was fulfilling, but now the fog has been lifted, you're aware of it. And so you're consciously choosing. Whereas before, not knowing, you were unconsciously choosing. And so that's where you lose that's where you lose the clarity of everything, or the sense of, or you no longer are moving forward in the direction where you want to go truly, because now you're aware and you're still choosing the past of what you've done.
1000%. So, to hit this on some closing notes. For the most part, everything was silent. So all that means to me is overall in this last hour and 38 minutes, we hit all the key points, even if out of no necessarily synchronistic order. For the most part, that's what the silence meant to me in the moment. I got no message. They were like, look, there ain't nothing necessarily to say. So this kind of goes back to earlier what I had said. It's like, say what you need to say and shut up. And then I said this weeks and weeks and weeks ago on a whole different transit, but the lesson stays. So what I will say is Monica, do you have anything that, your spirit is telling you to say out loud that people understand about all these gates? or any of these trends, anything that's coming through you, because it doesn't even have, you don't have to intellectualize it. This is the whole beautiful part about the Mercury being in Pisces. It's just like, what are you feeling called, if you feel called to say anything?
I keep hearing trust yourself. I keep hearing trust yourself and patience.
That's the key. That last one hit me even harder. The patience. It's like I totally agree with the trust yourself, because that's what Pisces and Mercury and all this Pisces energy is about. It's about divine trust. And like Pisces doesn't work for nothing. That's the opposite is Virgo. Virgo is the one working. Pisces stays still.
Yeah.
Pisces stay isolated. And through that isolation, you'll hear the trustworthy messages, and you'll respect the patience.
Yeah. And I take that as what harm is there if you wait?
Nothing, because that was one of the things I didn't even say that, but you must have picked up on my thought or something, because literally I was like, yo, at the end of the day, it's a week. Like in a week, everything we're saying right now is gonna shift.
If there's a big decision, or if there's epiphany, or there's anything that has come to you this week, why not wait? Just sit on it. And then next week, you say, all right, and then you move forward.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad, you just hit me up the last minute of that, where like I needed to hear that for myself, because I was like getting ready to take a trip, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna wait till next week to take my trip, like to book and do all the whatever. I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait.
My
So
my trip is booked. It's already booked. So we go. They pick the date, so we go on Thursday. So traveling graces to me, send good vibes. So
I see my dude Cam.
so it's my little. So it's their first time flying. So good vibes for us to travel to LA, see these Lakers. Yeah.
1,000%. What I would 1,000%. I'll leave it there. Hell yeah. I see this last message. He's saying, this dude Cam popped on. He said, "Say what you need to say and shut up." And the first thing I hear as soon as I open the video is, "This must have been the message for me." So, and that's how Pisces and Mercury's be working, yo. It's like, you just la 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 through life, and then you hear exactly what you need in exactly the moment, and none of it equated to willpower, force, or chase. None of it. Um, wow, Monica, do you know about Gate 26?
Yes.
Okay, that was the last thing. I just got this message.
Yeah.
That, and the reason why that matters is because Sagittarius, the moon is there. So again, the moon only going to be there. I mean, tomorrow the moon going to shift over. But so over the last 2 days, this energy has been here. This Gate 26. What can you tell us about it?
So gate 26, some of my favorite people had that gate too. I don't have it, but I have somewhat of the gift. Gate 26 is the true salesman. They are, and I've seen this manifest in people that I know. They can sell anything. The thing is to not be manipulative, because it is the
Mm-hmm.
gate of it's the gate of the egoist, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, amazing people, again, creative, but they are that's I'm gonna keep it short, but they are amazing salespeople. They can sell anything. They can get anybody bought in. The thing is to make sure it's coming from a place of truthfulness, and that they don't manipulate others.
So y'all may see it right here, and I'll make it a little bit bigger. Um, this is Sagittarius energy. This is the moon in Sag right now, and this shadow frequency is really operating from pride, literally, and that pride can manifest in two main ways, um, whether it's repressed or whether it is reactive. The repressed form equates to like it's almost I may be mistaken when I say this, but it's the energy is almost like elitist, thinking that you're in a sense so high and above everyone else that you don't need to say anything at all. You don't you don't need to explain, your rash behavior. You don't necessarily need to take accountability for even your silence. It's a very more covert form of manipulation. She spoke about manipulation. It's a more covert form of manipulation where it is designed to try to help others I don't want to say help. This is designed to make others feel inferior because that gives them some sense of feeling above, elite, if you will. In this repressed format, it's like literally saying nothing. And it's like, think about a Sagittarius that says nothing, and they just kind of give you that look. For most Sagittarius are not afraid to say anything. If anything, they say anything, and they don't care how it hurts you. Now that's the opposite side, the reactive Sag, right? So there's that one Sag, which the repressed form, where it will have this elitist mentality. Where it's like, I'm literally too good to respond to you. I'm literally too good to respond to this, whatever it is. And that is designed to help people feel, or to make people feel guilty or ashamed that they're not at your level. They're not at your status, that you can't even say anything in response. Now, separate from that, the reactive form of this gate can look like boastfulness, just being overly boastful. Okay. And like she said, it's the salesman. And that overly boastful could be the salesman who is, that might speak truly about their property. They're going to look at my car, look at my property, look at my home, look at what I've accomplished, look at my success. And they'll look to make others feel inferior from that pride standpoint on the opposite end, just being literally reactive and thinking that that's what is going to bring them more positive attention, or that's what's going to bring attention to them. But the reality is it brings them isolation, and it isolates them and puts them in a box. They put themselves in a box, and others don't want to be around them. In fact, others become repulsed by that person when they excessively use that pride and boast about all of their accolades. They begin to feel, if maybe they catch you at these inferior levels at some point, but then eventually they start to just walk away, and you end up not attracting, because if you're marketing, you're trying to make yourself look presentable in a sense. But the artfulness of this on gate 26, and it really matters because it's squaring Pisces as well, and it's going to be opposite of Gemini. It's opposite of Gemini, and it's squaring Pisces at the same time as Gemini is squaring everything we just said earlier in this message. So what that then transforms into, if you work with the pride, and basically integrate the ego in a more artful form, this looks like positive manipulation. Literally, I say artful form. Now, when I say positive manipulation, manipulation itself is not negative or positive. It just isn't. Like, I can think about it. You listen to your favorite song, it's manipulating your mood. They have no intention to necessarily make you feel better or make you feel worse, but the song has the frequency that it has when the artist created the song. At the end of the day, it's manipulating your mood. If you listen to some happy, cheerful, if you listen to some yoga, Chinese Zen meditation, it's manipulating your mood to feel more calm and at ease and relaxed. So that's an art. So what I'm saying is when we begin to more artfully integrate our ego, it becomes a costume. It becomes a character that we have created. In a sense, we present an illusion, a fantasy of, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. When I say I am, I'm talking ego, right? Go ahead.
What is their intention behind what they do, right? The intention, and then having pure intentions. If their intentions are pure, then they'll be able to convey the message as it should be, and it'll attract the people that it's supposed to attract. But the moment that their intention isn't good, or they're not aware of all of their intentions, then you have the chance of like repulsion. Like, people don't want to be around it, they don't want to listen, they don't, and it's not going to have the effect of their innate gift, which is
1,000%.
to draw people in.
1,000%. And it's like, it's the intention behind the artful form of manipulation is.
And so the ego is the gate that it's attached to, right?
Exactly.
So the ego is very much about, for someone who doesn't have a defined ego center, they're often trying to prove themselves and being competitive with other people. But people who actually have a defined ego system, if they're trying to prove themselves, they're very much in the not self, because they're supposed to just have their aura speaks for itself. Like, they're not trying to manipulate, they're not trying to prove anything, they're just being themselves. And by being themselves, then the aura comes, and they're able to get what they're trying to convey across in a healthy way, because it's good. It's not manipulative.
Exactly. So y'all saw right there in the middle. I'm not sure if you're able to recognize the ego center, but the 26, the line going across, it has an energy of Sagittarius connecting to Scorpio. What she said, huh?
Not trying to compete.
Exactly. And
trying to compete, which has a manipulative tone to it, right? Then that's they're in the not self of that
They
gate.
step totally out of their frequency. This is 1,000% right in alignment. You step totally out of your frequency. And what happens then at a physiological level, this 26 gate we spoke about is actually related to the thymus. So how you kind of know this right now is if you're sick. If you got sick in the last 2 days to 3 days max, up until tomorrow, likely something was out of alignment. This is connected to the thymus. The thymus is right here, okay? You can literally hit it and release white blood cells. So what did I say? Our white blood cells are housed behind our thymus. And this is directly linked to Sagittarius from a physiological standpoint. And it is responsible for sickness. White blood cells is what cures or keeps things in its healthy format. So when a person is healthy, generally, they're operating out of this 26 gate in a healthy manner. So, again, how people take that or not, it is what it is. So the artful form of this is, being aware that life is a game and is not to be taken too serious, and that, you have the opportunity to create your character that you're going to present to the world. That character should still be authentic to you, point blank, period, but it's okay to be aware that you have a character. Today, as I step on this live, I'm in character. Right now, as I talk to you, I am literally in character. The fact that I chose to wear my sunglasses is a part of my character. The fact that I chose to allow you to see this necklace and not the necklace that's right here sitting under my chest is a part of my character. It's a part of the role that I've decided to give. All of this. And so what I'm saying is this gift frequency of the 26 gate is about a lot of designing your animated Nicki Minaj, like we gave earlier. You see Andrew Tate, he is a Sagittarius. He does this. Now you can see where he's boastful, and now you know that's part of his reactive nature. But at the end of the day, he presented a character. Now that same character also got him in trouble. That same character also got him arrested on human trafficking of women. But he needed to be aware of his character. What I'm saying is all of this transit, it's showing we're clear of the suffering. So in this moment, he's in jail. Okay, let's just consider that suffering for a moment. He's been in jail for getting a pizza box delivered to his house that he didn't send. Literally, we're all witnessing this man get imprisoned, not because he did anything wrong, and I'm not necessarily defending him either. What I'm saying is he knew how to play his character, and that was his marketing strategy. And as a part of that, he has millions upon millions upon millions upon millions. That same character also got him imprisoned. So do be aware of your character that you decide to create. This is a part of the gift of the artfulness. And when we do that, we start realizing that music has the frequency of manipulation. Arts and paintings on the wall has the frequency of manipulation. You walk into a room, you see the Mona Lisa, you feel a certain way. Everything is manipulation. My words is manipulation. For me, a lot of it is words. For the next person, it's going to be through money. For the next person, is through you get the point. So my point is being aware of your ego, being aware of the integration of the ego, and how that could be a superpower. When you're not repressed, when you're not reactive, you're not pretending you're better than the rest of the world, and you're not overly boasting your other stuff. You're not staying silent because you're making another theory that way. Be aware of all of that. And when you integrate that, you can more artfully present your character. And that's when eventually that last city of the 26th gate, which is right now in the sky, it brings us to invisibility. It brings us to invisibility. Now, when I say invisibility, that's this acidic frequency here, okay? Moving from pride to artfulness to invisibility. This is when essentially you're protected from projection energy. So this is when you no longer even recognize when somebody's projecting onto you. Not because you're not aware, but essentially you're so well integrated in your art form of how you present yourself, how you market yourself from a heart level, because she said the heart. And one of the key things with this is from a heart level marketing. This is literally heart level marketing. What makes these people be so wealthy and be able to have so much money, status, things, whatever it is, what allows them to have part of these resources when they're truly operating from a heart space. when the heart space becomes their market. Because the thing is, that's a process that's felt. You can't fake the heart and the frequencies that come pure from the heart. You can't fake that. You don't need to speak about that. Go
One
ahead.
of the with the ego is, and I'm gonna have to go after this, but is people who have a defined heart, ego center, is if they say my heart wasn't in it. Your heart has to, if you have a defined ego center, your heart has to be in everything that you do. And you have to be careful because for generators, specifically, manifesting generators, if you have a defined ego and you choose to do something and you didn't check with yourself, your authority first, you have to come, you're nervous because you have so much energy, it has to complete it. Even though if it's not right for you have to complete it because that's how your makeup is. So you have to make sure that your heart is in it because once you get the call and you go after you respond, you're gonna have to finish it because generators don't skip steps and you gotta finish it and see it through.
I'm curious. You said that if it was defined, is it the same as if it's undefined?
If it's no, it's different if it's defined because you don't have that motor. Well, I'm sorry. Yes, for generators, if you don't follow your strategy and authority and you decide to do something, yes, you got to finish it to completion. But with the ego center, your heart has to be in it because you're gonna finish it. If you're a generator, you're gonna finish it to completion.
Defined or undefined, or it doesn't matter?
Defined or undefined for a generator. You
Okay.
have to finish everything to completion. When you take the call, you're gonna finish it. You're not gonna stop. You're going. You have that sacral energy, and that's just your nature. You're gonna finish it. Whereas manifest generators, they'll get off of it, right? But a generator, for the most part, is gonna finish it to completion.
What happens if they didn't?
But if you haven't defined ego, whatever you decide to do, your heart needs to be in it.
Sure. And what if you have an undefined? That's I was mostly talking about the ego center. What the ego center is undefined. Is it the same? That's mostly what I meant to say.
When the ego center is undefined, you don't have that. No, because you don't have a sense of, you don't know. Like it's not, your heart is undefined, right? So so it's different. You just need to know that you're not trying to compete with anybody. If you have an open defined center and you're trying to compete with somebody, you're acting from your non-self.
Okay, sure. So really to bring this to the conclusion, I know Monica has to go as well. That invisible factor, that last acidic frequency after the art form, it's like, in a sense, and it doesn't really do the justice when I say detached. It's like you're detaching from the art form itself and you just being. Literally, you're just being. And it's like you to the point where your ego itself becomes invisible. Like, this is when you start respecting, you know, what that God frequency can look and feel like. And what it is like a detachment from even that last phrase of the God frequency. You just are operating in a sense so in tune that you kind of phase out. You no longer are actually seen. It's like now this can literally be the person. People that kind of hit the acidic frequency, they might just literally live in the mountains, and they might have done it all, but they just become, in a sense, people no longer see them. No matter what they've accomplished or they haven't, no matter how much they follow their heart or not, they're not even really seen anymore. They just influence others by being themselves, even at that level, if you happen to come across. And what's nice about this is, even if somebody begins to project their thoughts or their fears onto you, you don't even really catch the frequency that happened. It kind of passes through you, where while before you hit that frequency, you'll begin to recognize projections, and you may get caught up in that projection. You may allow your pride or your ego to take over and want to kind of go back and fight that person, whatever it means. That doesn't have to be physical. I mean, like, a verbal battle or something like that. I'm mostly talking like a verbal discussion where you feel like you have to defend or anything like that. When it hit this invisible frequency, all of that ceases to it just withers away. So my point is, that's what this moon was reminding us, because it's only here for the last 3 to so days. You might have gotten sick. You might have been in bed to go through that memory, to realize, oh my God, my perspective has shifted. I'm no longer, and I've seen this for myself, like I'm no longer fighting people. Like I used to recognize when I was getting spiritually attacked and then want to go off. And then it's just like somewhere from that time frame until now, I see it and I'm like, I just see beauty within it. Like even if I see it, I see beauty within it. I'm like, okay, yes, they're progressing somehow. And that in a sense brings me happiness because I know that I can take care of myself. There's nothing to worry about. I just need to be myself. I just need to do what my intuition says. My intuition says, get the glass, set up the salt, get the blue candle. Oh, it cracked. Great. Followed I was just being. You know what I mean? It's like I didn't need to actively put a focus on defending or competing or any of the things you kind of just said. So that's just an example. And it can go in so many ways from there. But for the most part, that's the discussion today, ladies and gentlemen. Monica, you got anything before we put
No,
you backstage?
I got nothing. I got nothing. Thank you for having me on today. And yeah, this is good.
1000%. We'll tap in soon.
All right. Bye.
Thank you very much. Love. So if you're still here, here's really my little closing note. I put on there deceptive truth up at the top. Um, and what that deceptive truth looks like is the summary of this God taking you on a journey through your delusions and my delusions and through suffering. And through that suffering, we have gained a sense of unity because who's to say that, the next person suffered more than me? And global events happen for us to experience that together as a unit. Prime example 2020 lockdowns. Great. And you've seen that also with this gate, we're talking sexuality. This is a major one. Sexuality, sexual energy, huge, 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 huge. And the misuse of our sexual energy and the journey through denial, shame, regret, guilt, separation, as an illusion itself, and everything, how we repressed it, how we became reactive, all that this week in astrology will be very present. And the beauty of this is because that's what I just keep wanting to come back to. Like the beauty of this, okay? The beauty of this is it's put us in this sense, in this space of unity. And through that, we're beginning to mutate at a genetic level, which again, we're going to likely all be dead potentially up to 50 years. So, I mean, I think in 50 years, we're going to start to see this. The thing is, like, we're already at a molecular level, we're already shifting and mutating our DNA strands, the three nucleotides that come together. They're already shifting, they're already changing. We just don't necessarily fully see that, right? There are these little enzymes inside of us. But eventually, what's going to happen is, and why these mutations are happening is so that we can align with certain frequencies that are essentially leading us out of the need or the narrative of consciousness itself altogether. Altogether, there is a plane where consciousness literally ceases to exist. Now, to be honest, that's also just so far out that it's not necessary to get too deep into it in the moment. What is more necessary to understand that we are mutating, and through that there is pressure, and pressure creates diamonds. So the pressure is dealing with more responsibly our emotions. And this is what Saturn and Pisces will finally put a restriction and a halt on, even if necessary, to start dealing with our emotions and with a new perspective, with a lens that says, be aware of how you emotionally impact the person next to you. And that within itself will occur and accrue karma in the positive sense, which will eventually start to completely dissolve not just our karma, but the karma of the people even before us. This, for me, like I said, there's going to be plenty of dark nights of the soul, plenty of nervous breakdowns. But at the end of the day, this for me is a beautiful, beautiful time because we can actually see through this pressure humanity and society coming closer to grace, coming closer to compassion, and that's beautiful. So hit the thumbs up, hit the likes button. Ruby, Astro Guy, Corvette Cam, great to see you in the chats. From here, I'm going to check y'all soon. I think it might be time for me to go play basketball. Boom. Okay, so that said, I love you all for being here. I'm going to give you a little shake on the way out. And, you know, from there, man, life is beautiful. Thank you for the thumbs up. This Sunday, we're going to meet in the membership again. I'm going to break down a lot of this other stuff because I'm telling you, I promise you, and everything I love, it's like the combination of astrology, human design, gene keys, all in one. The thing is, they don't separate. They don't. And it's a great way for us to understand with a new perspective because that's what's being asked of us in these exact transit, to shift our perspective. I love you. I'll see you all soon. Ciao.